Kom, Zuidpaasberg! Berg, weg, weer weg!
Here we are in the old Transvaal at the foot of the Voortrekker Monument. About 150 years ago, Afrikaners came over these hills in covered wagons and conquered the landscape in which we now stand. And ever since, on December 16, we've gathered to thank God for our ancient victories over Africa. The first such ceremony took place in 1838, and this one may be the last for all I know, because we Afrikaners are about to lose power in South Africa's first free election, a prospect that leaves us bitterly divided. Some Afrikaners, like myself, for instance, figure it's time to give ourselves into the arms of the great African mother and trust that she won't drop us. But on the hill up there under the monument, there are thousands and thousands of Afrikaners who think that Afrikaners like me are insane. Let's go meet them.
The black man believes you dominate or he dominates. But share power? No ways. The black man doesn't believe in sharing power. He has never believed in it. He doesn't believe in opposition. Right through Africa, this guy, Rwanda, Burundi, they're killing each other. You come here, once a white pulls out, the Zulus and Xhosas are going to wipe each other. They don't believe in sharing power. How can I share power? Either I dominate and he dominates. My friend, give me my chance.
We have to establish the context. That's absolutely critical. I mean, so we have to give some sort of sense that we're not just talking about South Africa or about Tanganyika, that we're talking about Afrikaners and their destiny in Africa. We're talking about the similarities between Pretoria today and Tanganyika in 1959, 1960, at the time of Uhuru. And also like what becomes of Afrikaners after the fact in either case. I mean, both here and there.
Rian, do you know these people we're going to see?
Yeah, they're refugees in a way, Boers who were born under Mount Kilimanjaro long ago and far away, about 3,000 miles away, actually. And they lived up there in the heart of Africa for about 3 generations, but when Uhuru came, they ran for their lives.
What's Uhuru?
Independence, black rule. Well, in any event, they had to return to the motherland, and now they live here in the suburbs of Pretoria, and they work in offices and factories, and they dream about the way it used to be. You know, stuff like lions in the backyard and Maasai warriors going after your cattle, sunrise over Mount Kilimanjaro.
Ja, dat was vijf.
So jy kon daar in die oggend op jou stoep sit en die olifantkudde stop.
Nee, die olifant het in die bos, in die oerwoud gebly. Hulle was nou nie op die vlaktes.
En wat was daar die eerste 2-3 jaar van onafhanklikheid van Uhuru? Hoe kan jy vir my jou ondervindings in daardie tyd beskryf?
Al die swartes op ons plaas is in trane gewees oor ons weggaan. Toe ons nou daar by Iringa rondry, toe hulle met klippe na ons gegooi en gesê, weg is julle.
Kaboers.
Yeah. Was she part of the early community?
Yes, Mr. De Beer's father was General Wynand Malan, who's one of the best known of the early trekkers, and she was born there. I haven't asked yet exactly when, because I think that might be impolite. Right. But, and you lived there all your life until 1963 when you left, right? Yeah. I did a thing on Radio Pretoria asking Tanganyika Afrikaners to get in touch with me, and he's one of the guys who phoned. Arvier De Beer, former game hunter and safari bwana. Back in the 50s, he once took Haile Selassie hunting, but these days he farms lucerne and organizes commandos for the White Right Wing. So we're going to have a braai and meet some characters from Arvier's lost East African heyday.
Tell us the sort of people that are going to be there tonight at the braai.
Well, the people that's going to be there tonight at the braai is all except my wife, from Tanzania, born and bred in Tanzania. We can still remember how it looked when we left. And very few, I think 1 or 2 of us have been back, really to see what is left. And the messages we got back, unfortunately nothing on video, nothing on camera, so we couldn't visually see it. But what we were told, it was terrible. It is broken down, left in ruins.
Would you like to go back?
Yes. I think 99% of the East Africans that are here in South Africa would love to go back. There we had basically everything, but it's not in abundance as in South Africa. And the country was kind to us, the rainfall was good, the farming was good, the hunting was good, and the people were friendly and they knew one another. We were like a big family. We weren't strangers to one another.
We're buying meat for a braai vleis. So braai vleis is a South African cultural tradition, very important and dear to Afrikaners, where we make fire in the open and put the meat on and grill it, and drink beer and get drunk and talk about rugby.
What's that stuff over there?
Oh, that's biltong. That's what kept the fur trekkers going when they were trekking across the broad, flat plains celebrated in our national anthem. They shot game and cured it in that way. And so that's biltong. That's probably the Afrikaner national dish.
En hoeveel hoe ja, die dokter vrou Grilla hoe eie gekry. Hy sê net een.
Did it break your heart to leave? When you look at this map, what is you?
100%.
So why didn't?
We were born there, we were free on the farm.
So why did you leave?
Well, the main thing was education. No schools. There was no future. Unless you could have stayed in farming, you see.
Yeah. And that was difficult.
Very difficult.
This is a story about Afrikaners, and it begins in 1899 when the Boer republics in South Africa's interior were crushed by the British Empire. In the aftermath, a handful of diehards took their guns and wagons aboard ship and sailed past Zanzibar to the Arab port of Tanga, almost on the equator. Beyond Tanga, there was nothing, just dust, heat, and disease. They were searching, I suppose, for a place where an Afrikaner might live as he pleased, and at the outset they despaired of finding it. Men and oxen died of fever. Wagons were hauled across the plains by human beings on tracks hewn open by hand. And in this way they crossed the Maasai Steppes and came finally to the twin volcanoes, under which lay the best farmland they'd ever laid eyes on. So they claimed it for themselves and turned its black inhabitants into their vassals and transformed the wilderness into paradise. By 1950, there were some 2,000 Boers under the volcano, living a life of such unbearable sweetness that grown men break down talking about it. The soil was deep, labor cheap, and the sun so close that anything you planted yielded fruit in astonishing profusion. At night, you could sit on your porch and watch the moon rising over the icy summit of Kilimanjaro. But in the morning, it would be burning hot again, and there would be clouds of dust above distant plains where the wildebeest were on the move. It was the best place in all the world. That's what the Afrikaners tell you. The air was cool, the rivers were clean. A Boer could take his sons to wild, lonely places and teach them the manly arts of hunting. And when the chase was done, there were always plenty of native boys to finish the Bwana's dirty work. This idyll ended in 1961, when the colonies were swept away by a wind of change and Africans rose up to rule themselves. Life became difficult for a small band of white people, all alone and far from home. One by one, they abandoned their land and fled, and in their wake came collapse and disintegration. Their lush farms became bankrupt collectives. Their wheat fields turned into dust bowl. Tanganyika became Tanzania, the poorest country on the entire planet. By 1994, there was little left to mark their passage, save some lonely blue gum trees, graves and ruins, and one lonely old lady left behind by the receding tide.
Before, haven't you?
Yeah, you know, I was looking for Now, the Boers who once lived here thought that they'd be butchered or oppressed when the blacks took over, so they ran, first to Kenya, and then to the Rhodesias, and finally back to South Africa proper, where all they talk about these days is war. And this is the trouble with Afrikaners. We believe it's impossible for us to survive under black rule. So I came here looking for some insights into our tribal pathology, and I found this remarkable old lady, the widow Katrin Odendaal. Yeah, Shikamam, Zay. How are you? Aha. Mama John is here.
Jambo.
How are you?
Safi.
Good to see you.
Habari ya nyumbani?
Hey. Gaan het met jou?
Waar je gekomen, hè? Ik is toch zo blij om je weer te zien.
Ja?
Hij heeft voor mij gisteren gezegd, Iran, kom.
Wie het gezegd?
Is hier. Ik zei voor hem, hij zal niet zo gauw komen.
Nee, hoe tegen wie?
Ik is toch zo blij dat je gekomen bent.
Nee,
Ik is toch zo blij om jou te zien.
Ja.
Oh, ik is toch blij.
Dat is mijn vrienden waar ik gebrengen die. Gaat het goed met jou?
Ik is elke dag ziek.
Schatkanker, dan ga ik terugkomen.
Je was hier niet toe en teruggekomen.
Ik was hier niet toe teruggekomen. Baie goed voor jou gebring. Maar ook slechte nieuws. Jouw zuster is dood en jouw broer Hendrik is ook dood.
Je van hulle gehoord?
Ik heb daar Skalk Pretorius in handen gekregen. Hij is nog aan die leven.
Ja, je weet, Skalk Pretorius. Mijn zuster was met hem getrouwd. Ja, Betty.
Ze heeft 5 jaar geleden gesterven in je hospitaal. Stil.
Hij is 5 jaar ouder dan ik.
5 jaar ouder is hij, ja. Maar mensen daar stuur groeten. Skalk woont nu bij Jan Joubert.
In die Unie?
In die Unie. Palaboro wonen hulle. Maar ik heb daar niet... Ik heb baie niets voor jou gebring. Ik heb baie presenten ook.
Ik is toch zo blij om jou weer te zien, Banna.
From here, all the way across to that mountainside, all this land was once settled by Afrikaners. There was Bwana Malan, Bwana de Wet, Bwana Pretorius, Bwana de Beer. And they all left in the run-up to Uhuru, and their farms were collectivized. And so, by 1968, she was the only Boer left in the entire landscape. You know, she hadn't heard Afrikaans in decades before I pitched up here, and she'd seen hardly any white people. She was such an oddity that tribesmen would walk for hours so that their children could see what a white looked like.
What do they think of her? Does she fit in here?
You know, people seem to love her as far as I can tell, which is extremely generous of them, considering that she's a member of a foreign tribe that came here uninvited and took all their land away. You know, her neighbors help out at harvest time. They chased warthogs out of her field. They send out the posse if the Maasai come raiding her cattle. I mean, what more could you ask of neighbors? They call her Mama Joni, which I think means Johnny's mother in Swahili.
Who's Johnny?
Johnny is her eldest son. Her husband died about 10 years ago, leaving her with 5 grown children to care for, plus 2 orphans and 29 grandchildren, 6 oxen, 3 cows, and 2 ancient men who help out in the banana plantation.
How on earth do they survive?
Well, barely. I mean, you know, no one here has any money at all. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's very little Western-style rubbish lying around here. Every scrap of food gets eaten and nothing comes wrapped in plastic, so there's absolutely nothing to throw away. I mean, you know, this is like real life in rural Africa. It's dust, flies, boredom, disease, no electricity, no running water, no telephones. And the rains are late this year, so one of her cows has just gone dry, and her oxen are crawling with ticks, but there's no tick dip to be had in Tanzania. I mean, even if you've got the money, you can't buy it, and she doesn't have the money anyway.
Sounds dreadful.
Well, it's tough, you know. Just for me, it's very strange to see an Afrikaner living like this.
Why?
Because Afrikaans has always been a language of mastery, of sort of feudal domination of African landscapes and African people. There's never been any doubt in Afrikaner minds that it was their destiny to eat up the landscape and tame it and possess it and have black men to hew their wood and draw their water forever and ever and ever. Also, hoe was die verhouding tussen die boere hier en die swartes? Die swart mense?
Je weet, die boeren het niet baie van die zwarte gehouden.
Weet nie.
Hulle het nie baie van die swart nasies gehou. Maar die swart nasies het geen moeilikheid met hulle gemaak.
Ja.
Wat vir hulle gewerk en alles gedoen.
En Wat was jou verhouding met die swartes geweest? Daar toe jy jonk was. Was jy net soos die ander boere geweest?
Nee, glad.
Hoekom nie?
Ik weet niet, mijn hart was niet zo geweest. Ik heb gezien dat is maar mensen net zo soms.
Ja.
Als ze van mij kost geven, eet ik dat. Als ze met mij praat ik dat.
Maar jy moes vir my gesê as 'n swart man daar aankom by 'n boer se huis dan en hy vra water, wat gebeur dan?
Hulle geef vir hom water met 'n blikkie of iets. Nie met hulle koppies nie.
Ja.
Mag ik drink water met hulle koppies drinken.
En hy moet daar by die deur staan.
En hij moet daar bij die dier staan, hij mag niet in huis ingaan.
Ja. En jy self, was jy anders te geweest?
Ja, ik was baie anders te geweest. Bij mij komt geef van water met een koppie.
Ja.
En ik lag drink het, was ik die koppie, wat zou je oorkomen?
So was die mense hier, was hulle bang geweest vir die boere? Die Merus, ja.
Die Merus, ja, hulle was bang geweest voor die boeren. Hulle was baie bang voor die boeren. Maar die boeren het hulle niet slecht behandeld om te zeggen. Hij het maar net voor hulle zullen wel landen vatten, geen niet voor hulle landen niet. Hulle moet voor hulle werk. Een salaris is maar een klein beetje.
Ja. So hoe het die wêreld gelyk 30 jaar gelede, 40 jaar gelede voor Uhuru?
Karonieke was een baie mooi plek.
Hoe dit
Gooi rechtig toe die boeren hier geweest zijn. Hier was groentetuinen, hier was boerte, groente, vruchten, enige soort vruchten geweest.
Wat is dit?
Toen die boeren nou weggaan, je weet. Toen die middels als uitgeroeid, je weet, er altijd landen gemaakt. Die hele weet je van mooie huizen.
Ja.
Hulle boer met die westen in die huis.
Ja.
Maak vier in die huis. Breek die huizen af. Verkoop die platen. En die dakken af. Hulle weet hoe om te boeren.
So jy het dikwels hierdie pad geloop, né?
Ja, baie. Donkies op voor.
Nou waar was die skool geleë waar jy op skool gegaan het? Jy het mos by Willem Malan ingewoon toe jy op skool was,
Ja,
né?
is daaronder. Ons
Daaronder.
reed op die witse plaats afzoen.
Afsoen toe, okay.
Ja. Daar zullen we die krachten van mijn oma ook krijgen.
Ja.
Niks voor die beest om te zien. Wat
Niks.
Niks man. Serieus, onze wien krijgen ons blij is. Recht daar is niks om te vreten.
Wanneer jy gaan dit nou op hongersnood uitkom, as dit vir jaar nie reën nie, wat gaan
Oh,
gebeur?
ik weet niet hoor. Mensen wat zo bij wie zeggen, die mensen zijn allemaal dood van honger.
Somewhere here lie the bones of old Piet Oudendal, who was Katrine's grandpa. Old Piet hated the English and their concentration camps, so he trekked north around 1907, only to get lost on the way and spend several years wandering around in the Congo, hunting ivory and living off the land. The Oudendals were completely beneek, as Afrikaners say, meaning wild, crazy. It took them 10 years to come here in Oxwagon. They got here, didn't like it that much. They went back to South Africa in Oxwagon and came back again. Did this old lady who's nevertheless, in spite of those privations, lived to be 85 years old. But Katrina's mother was very ill during her pregnancy and died 12 days after she was born. And she was raised by her grandmother. Tannie, vertel van ons die storie van toe jy gebore is en hulle gesê jy gaan nie leef nie, maar die vrou hier.
Sy het my groot gemaak. Ek is gebore, ek is baie klein geweest. En ek was 12 dae oud toe my ma dood. Toe my ouma, die wat hier begrawe is, toe sy vir my gevat en sy het met my gesukkel tot ek 15 jaar oud was, toe my ouma dood.
Ja. So almal het gedink jy gaan doodgaan.
Almal het gedink ek sal doodgaan want ek was baie klein. Jy het mos my kappietjie gesien.
Ja.
Ek was baie klein. Ek kon nie melk drink nie, hulle het met 'n lepeltjie van my melk gegee. Hulle het my met watte toegemaak. Ek het nie klere aangetrek nie.
Watte, hè?
Nee.
En waarin het hulle jou gebere?
In 'n boks. Hierdie batte shoebox.
Shoebox?
Ja.
Sure.
Met vol watte gesit en dan hulle my daar aangesit.
So Katerina's family were very poor.
Yeah, you know, they were like truck Boers, Afrikaners from another century. They spent the 20s and 30s circling these volcanoes like nomads with their goats and cattle. And that was fine while the land was open. But after World War II, they began to run out of space. There were too many people, roads and things, and the frontier was closing. So they trekked over there to a place called Makuru, where they stayed for a while. They couldn't stay there, and then they went across to Ngara, Nairobi. And what you told me last time is that they just kept moving, but they couldn't find a place to stop where they could keep their cattle. So eventually the day came where they just had to sell all the livestock and go and get jobs in town, like other people. I'll watch until we get to the graveyard, and then I'll hand it back to you.
So what are you looking at next?
No, but you... I think it's the German tourists and elephants. No, wait, hold. No, it's the bit about the clinic. Visit to the clinic. Now, the poor old lady, I mean, how would you feel if you went to the doctor and you got followed in by a posse of media trendies with cameras and microphones?
Yeah, she doesn't look very well. What's her problem?
She's got dysentery. Racked with dysentery, as the saying goes.
Are you still thinking of taking her to Nairobi to find a doctor?
You know, I mean, I asked her and she said no ways. She can't leave because no one can be trusted to milk her cattle.
Do you think she's all right to go on with us?
Well, you know, I hope so. I asked her, I said, Leicester Tony, don't you want to go to bed now? And so she tells me this long story about childbirth, about how she never laid down, even when she was in labor. She just had the baby right there on the floor, all alone. No doctors, no anesthetic, nothing. I said, so you're tough, eh? And she says, I have to be. If I wasn't tough, I'd be dead by now. In 1951, Katrina and her brothers, Jan and Kun, moved into a house at a sawmill in the heart of the rainforest. It was a fairly novel experience for her to live in a house with proper windows and doors. Her brothers tended the old steam engine that drove the saw that cut the trees into planks. Katrina cooked and cleaned for them.
Hier was baie kaste, klerenkaste en goed en geweest. Als maar het was altijd al een singasse.
It's a hard thing to explain to an outsider, the Afrikaner taboo and love across the color line. In the old days, in small South African towns, upright Boers would commit suicide rather than stand trial for their transgressions of the so-called Immorality Act. And as for a woman doing it, falling in love with an African man, moving into his community and bearing his children, that was simply unthinkable. And that's why the Sambulu tribesman was such bad news. He was young, he was black, he was beautiful, and for a Boer girl, he was absolutely taboo. So waar het jy hom die eerste keer gesien?
Hier so waar, hy het iets gewerkt.
En sy lorry?
Ja, hy het wel die lorry kry.
Ja.
Planken en blokken gereden in die kar.
And was it love at first sight? Ja.
Voordat jy dink, jy doen wat jy nie moest doen.
Ach, so is die lewe maar. So is jong mense maar, né?
Ja, dat is het.
Ja. Maar Tannies mos nie spyt nie, né?
Ek is nie spijt nie, my kindertjies het nog vandag by hulle.
Nee, sulke pragtige kinders en kleinkinders. So, waar is die huis waar julle daar so in die geheim ontmoet het? daai storie wat Tannie my vertel het.
Sy huis is afgebreek, hy het nie meer daar nie.
Waar het die huis gestaan?
Die daar staan daai.
Jy is waar julle so gaan. Pas nou, né? Pas is klein. So wat sê Tannie van die liefde? Maak dit van mense dwaas.
Ja, hy maak jou mal.
Maak jou mal.
Ja.
So, het jy mal geraak met die man?
Ja.
Ja, nee. Ja, nee. As jy terugdink aan daardie dae, is dit 'n soete herinnering vir jou?
Baie.
Baie.
Baie, ja.
En dis goed so.
Can you tell us a bit of the story here?
We're discussing her love affair, the most famous love affair of 1951 in this area. She and her lover used to meet. There used to be an old wooden house standing up there, and her brothers had got wind of the affair that she was having. Got wind of the fact that she was having an affair with a black man, and they didn't like this at all, and they were threatening murder and mayhem. So she enlisted a co-conspirator, who's a guy who worked here, and they dug a hole in the floor of his shack up there. And so she and her lover would meet while her brother was working down there at the sawmills, and if he started walking up again, her lover would jump into the hole, and they'd cover the hole with planks and put a table on top of it. And she'd pretend nothing was happening. But she says this is a very sweet memory of passion, of love that drives you mad.
Ek wens dat jy daar kan nog so jong wees soos daai tyd.
Dus jy in die middel, né? En daardie broers wat mal gegaan het toe jy swanger raak, né?
Jy weet my broer Jan, hy het nie baie moeilikheid gemaak nie. Wat baie moeilikheid gemaak het is my broer Koen.
Koen, ja. Goed is van hom, is maar so het voorstel. Ek kry wel het maklik beklei, maklik geslaan. As dit so is,
Maar
hè?
ek was nie vir hom bang nie, al was hy ook benieuwd. Ek was niks vir hom bang nie. Want ek het gesê, jy my kan doodmaak, maak my dood as jy kan. Maar hy het nie geprobeer.
Toe jy ons sê jy swanger het hy jou geslat, het hy jou
Denk jy
gedwongen?
hulle het geweet dat ek swanger is?
Hulle nie
Niemand kon sien dat ek swanger is.
Hoe het jy dit
Tot die
weggestuur?
tyd. Ek en al my kinders, daar's niemand weet as ek swanger is.
Nee, maar Tannie is
Regtig.
Tannie. En Koen, en toe het jy jou goed ingepak en voet weggegaan?
Nee,
of het jy
ek het niks
weggekom?
gevat.
Net gehardloop?
Ja, ek het net so gegaan. My klere wat ek aangehad het.
In die nag?
In die dag, as hy in die werk is, het ek weggeloop.
So waar, né? En toe stap jy heeltemal aan die ander kant die berg om na jou ander tannie
Nee, ek
toe.
het afgestapt daar na die pad toe. Daar het op 'n kar geklim. En toe is ek na my tannie toe.
En hoeveel maande was jy reeds met kind?
Ek het net daar by haar 2 dae gewees. Toe is die kind gebore. En toe het ek geweet, hulle sal my daar kom soek.
Ja.
Toe wou ek nie daar by haar bly. En hulle het gekom om my te kom soek.
Ja.
Maar hulle kon my toe nie kry nie, want ek was nie daar.
Tannie,
En hulle het nie geweet waar is ek nie.
hoekom het jy hier weggeloop? Wat het hulle gedreig gaan hulle doen met jou of met die
Hulle wil
kind?
die kind doodmaak. As die kind gebore is, dan maak hulle die kind dood.
Was dit wat hy vir jou gesê het?
Ja, dit hulle het vir my gesê. En dit wou ek nie gedoen het. Waarom het ek dit gedoen?
Sure. So we're going towards Ngaramatoni, following the road down which
Where the shop?
June fled, pregnant with her brothers hot on her tail in 1951. Tony was 9 months pregnant, and her brothers discovered that this was the case, and she realized that they'd be murderously angry, so she slipped away from the house in the dead of night, slept in the bush, and the following morning caught a bus that brought her all the way across from that volcano through Arusha to this place, which is called Ngaramatoni. She'd come to seek refuge with an aunt of hers, but as soon as she got here, she began to fear that her brothers would follow and then either kill her or perhaps kill the child when the child was born. So she ran away when she went into labor and gave birth to the baby under a thorn tree up on the hillside over here, which wasn't then a coffee estate, it was apparently just bush. And she's sitting there with the child in her hand, didn't know what to do. And this sort of unsevered umbilical cord when an old black woman came by and helped her, took her home with her, older woman who knew what to do. And the child survived, and according to the Tani, he's a hardy individual. And here he is today, John Shobani Lulu.
So you were born out there, Bushi? Yeah? You've been here before?
Yeah, I've been here before.
En wie is daar die vrou geweest? Hoekom het sy jou so gehelp?
Ek weet nie, sy was om Nyaramba try.
Nyaramba.
Ek ken haar nie, maar sy was om Nyaramba try geweest.
En het sy nie gewonder wat maak jy daar stoksel alleen 'n wit vrou wat
Ek het vir haar
onder dood?
nee, ek het vir haar alles vertel.
En wat sê sy toe?
Sy was baie jammer geweest.
Is dit?
Ja.
En so dis was die met daardie naastroom wat julle daar by Haais afgekom. Dit was die einde van Tannie se verbintenis met die bode hier van Meru, nee.
Ja.
Daarvan dan het jy jou eie pad gekies.
Ja, my eie pad gekies. Ja. Maar toe ek nou terug is, dat hulle nou hoor dat ek 'n kindjie is daarna wat hulle my begin verstoot het.
Ja.
Die een sien my raak nie op my, ek wil my nie in die kerk sien of niks. By my verby stap en spookel om.
So waar, Tannie?
Ja, rechts. Daar heb je de wetse vrou.
Maar nou is hulle mos allemaal weg, nie is Tannie hier met die mooie kinders. Nee, wat sê jy?
Nou bly ek mos maar lekker.
Ja. Ja, nee, Tannie. Daardie boer het jou seker baie seer gemaak toe hulle jou na die ou dae verstoot, né?
Baie, baie. As hulle my sien, dan spoeg hulle. Sê hulle, jy is nog slegter as wat ek afver is. Soos Pieter, sy vrou. Sy het my skoolmeester gewees.
Ja.
Toe ons skool gegaan het. En sy my sien, dan spoeg sy.
So het jy seker baie
Kyk
seer
ek na haar en sê ek, jy kan maar spoeg. Ek sal nie verander nie.
Ja.
Ek bly soos ek is en ek sal nie vir jou kos vra of iets nie.
Goed.
Ek sal leef.
Ja.
Ek het hulle reguit gevertel, ek was baie kwaai. Dink jy ek het vir hulle bang gewees?
Ek is nie Tannie is nog vandag
Nee.
kwaai, né?
Ek sê vir hulle, ek is nie vir julle bang nie. Ek
Ja.
bly nie in julle huis nie.
Ja.
Ek vra julle nie kos nie. Ek vra julle niks om te eet.
Ja.
So julle kan maak soos julle wil. Moenie na my toe kom nie, moenie my dag sê nie.
Ja.
Ek leef soos ek kan leef.
So het jy hulle jammer gekry toe die boere en hulle het jou mos verstoot. Toe kry
Waarom moet ek hulle jammer kry? Ek was maar bly toe hulle weggegaan.
Dis bly.
Ja, dat hulle loop.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Ja.
Want hulle ken my nie, waarom moet ek vir hulle jammer wees? As een jou verstoot, sal jy vir hom jammer wees.
En so het hulle allemaal weggegaan, het hulle vir jou kom
Jy
tot
weet,
ziens sê.
is daarom, want hulle weet hoe die hoero nou ingekom het. Nou kan hulle niks maak nie, hulle moet liefst dan vlug. Want as hulle nie wil vlug nie, dan sal hulle dokters, die kaffers van hulle dokters strim.
Ja.
Toen is hulle bang daarvoor dat ek sal vir hulle lag.
Ja.
Nou, hoe is julle nou?
Ja.
Toen wordt hulle bang, dan vlug hulle allemaal mos weg, Zuid-Afrika toe, dan gaan hulle zo toe. Want hulle weet dat hulle hier bly. Want ek weet van baie dokters, wat samen met my in die school geweest het.
Ja.
Wat baie van die swartes gehou.
Dis dit.
Ja. En as hulle nie gevlug het met hulle dokters nie, dan was allemaal dieselfde geweest wat ek vandaag is.
Ja.
Maar hulle het met hulle gevlug voortgegaan Zuid-Afrika.
Ja.
What are you planning to do now with these tapes you've got here?
Well, I'm going to show her photographs of Afrikaners who grew up here and were born here and who she'll know, but who ran away at the time of Uhuru or just afterwards. and see what she makes of that. It makes her laugh or cry. And then I'm also going to show her we went on a shopping expedition in a small town just outside Pretoria. And I just wondered what she'd make of the cornucopia of consumer goods available to your ordinary average South African.
Are you going to show her any current affairs stuff?
Yeah, we're going to show her some news as well and see what she makes of South African Uhuru, having been through it once. But she's not particularly interested in politics. And I asked her about where she was on the night of Uhuru. What, in 1961, when Tanzania became independent, she was living in Arusha, and she said, you know, she didn't mind either way. You know, she derived a certain malicious glee from the unease that beset the Afrikaner community on that night, those who remained. And she was extremely amused when at midnight the firecrackers started going off. And she was living next door to an Indian family, and they thought it was gunfire, and they all scuttled for cover and hid under beds and so forth because they thought that the colonialists' nightmare was actually coming true, and now they were going to be slaughtered, you know, under their beds, as the case may be. But she thought it was funny. Is Tony lief vir inkopies doen, of is dit vir jou?
Je zal lief wees als je die geld hebt om dat te doen, maar als je niet de geld hebt, dan moet je daar wegblijven. Je kijkt naar die goed en je kunt niks kopen, wat maak je dan? Beter om bij je huis te blijven, niks te zien.
Want het is alweer de bier daar. Dit is best goed.
Ik ken hem, je weet, maar nou dat hij een beetje oud geworden is. Zo ben ik verkeerd.
A deal was done today to fundamentally change South African politics and to end 300 years of white supremacy.
ANC and government negotiators finally agreed an interim constitution, which will for the first time empower the country's majority black population.
I think we are giving birth to a good constitution which will serve South Africa well and which will lay a foundation for true democracy and long-term stability.
Nelson Mandela, who was released from prison 3 years ago by Mr. de Klerk, is now set to replace him. He predicts his ANC party will all but destroy the National Party at next April's black and white elections.
On the 27th of April next year, we will bury the National Party. It will never be seen again.
But not all blacks are celebrating. The mainly Zulu Inkatha Freedom Party walked out of the talks 4 months ago, complaining they would lose power and territory. The extreme right, furious at what they see as a selling out of white rule, today warned of civil war.
Today is a beginning of confrontation and in the end, a war, not the beginning of a new, peaceful South Africa.
But tonight, the talks here, where the lengthy negotiations have taken...
Commentaar, wat denk jy? Nee?
Is dit toen oorlog gemaakt?
Dis daardie nee, daar's de Klerk, hy is die een soort kaboele. Hy sê nie hy kan saamwerk met Mandela. Hulle wil 'n Uhuru hê. Maar die ander soos ou Blanche, hy sê nee, hy wil net skiet.
Ja.
Hy wil die swart mense doodskiet. So sy beneek of wie's reg en wie's. Daardie troepe is sy eie troepe, nie regeringstroepe, dis sy eie privaat troepe.
Troepe, wat hy wel meer moeilikheid soek.
Hy wil moeilikheid soek, hulle wil swart mense doodmaak. Dus wat denk jy, Tony?
Waaroor wil hulle nou beklei?
Daardie te Blanche kerel, hy wil aan die bewind bly. Hy wil hê die wittes moet die krag hou, en die polisie en alles.
En die swartes moet onderwees.
Hy wil die swartes onderhou.
Ik zie niet daarvoor. Waarom wil je het zo?
Waarom wil zo? En wat van de Klerk en Mandela? Wat denk je van hulle?
Ja, wat denk je van hulle? Doen alles recht, man.
Doen recht?
Ja.
So je denkt het gaan goed gaan met die boeren als het...
Ja, als hulle het recht krijgt, zal het baie beter wees in Zuid-Afrika.
Is het?
Ja.
In my mind, it was a very neat place. Now it's dirty, filthy. The only way to describe it is to say, well, you're going into a slum area.
Right. Why do you think that's happened? Is it?
Basically, Tanzanians were never very rich people in context to people overseas. They had enough to eat. They had all the comforts of life. The only thing that kept Tanzania neat and clean was, as far as I'm concerned, the white influence. The white influence was there. He told the guy, look, pick up that dirt, do this, do this, do this. He organized it for them. He thought for them. You find now, I don't know if people have noticed in South Africa over the past, since '83 at any rate, how far we have deteriorated in this country. We have gone right back down the drain. And we're fast on the way to becoming another Kenya in Tanzania.
And so we prepared this short, hour-long film of, it sort of extracts the videos that we shot of some of the farmhouses of these Tanganyika Afrikaners. And we're going to show them what their world looks like 35 years after their departure. And we also have a surprise for them.
We like to
Well, there is one Afrikaner left there under the volcano, whose name is Katrina Odendaal.
Hulle sê van ons gaan surprise wees.
Wie?
Die manne met daai vullen.
Is dit?
Hulle ons kom vra ja, wat verwag ons?
Ons verwag niks nie, ons sal sien wat ons kry.
Sê alles is die moed. Sê hulle.
Ons sal sien wat ons kry, man.
Ons ook Katrien Odendaal ook gekry daar.
Wie?
Katrien Odendaal.
Ag nee.
Ja.
Nog 'n Tanganyika?
Ja.
Land of Kenya.
Did Grian tell you that we found somebody that lives there that has lived there for many years?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know her?
Katrien, yes.
Oh, Katrien Odendaal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes, we know the story. Yes.
Do you? Really? Did you know her as a child?
Yeah.
Yes? What was she like then?
She was near mekaar, yeah.
Yeah. Nonsense.
What was she like as a child?
She was all right.
But they were so
She was
poor.
Yes,
The
they
whole
were
family, very, very poor.
What way did she go in the wrong way?
Well,
Was it?
not actually wrong way. According to our view, you know, it was something terrible to go into live among the blacks and so forth. So she was sort of pushed out then.
What makes this group of people very special and unusual in the context of South Africa now, do you think?
Well, the fact that they're white South Africans who've been up in Tanzania, or Tanganyika as they call it, and have been faced with the black government coming into power, and they've had to flee from that black government, and now they're facing a very similar situation here in their own country, and there's nowhere for them to run to.
Yes.
So it's fascinating.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Do you think that it's a fitting metaphor in the sense that?
I think there are very close parallels. Yeah, yeah, between what happened to them and what is happening again now. Yeah.
How would you describe it here now, being somebody who lives here?
I think much more dangerous.
Much more dangerous.
Right?
Well, it's the end of the road. There's nowhere else. This is their home. There's nowhere else for them to go on to from here. They've either got to adapt to the new system or fight, or those are their choices, basically. There's no way for them to run to anymore.
Hoeveel boentjies het jy vir verlede jaar gekry?
Een zak bootjes.
Een sak.
Wat kun je daarmee maken?
En je melk?
Van melk, je krijgt een beetje geld van die melk. Dan koop je een beetje suiker, je koopt een beetje zeep, je lampolie.
Maar wat is je dan waarzoor jij klaar moet komen?
Partijmaal drinken ons net met een beetje melk. Ons zet die suiker en je hebt die geld om te kopen. Ik ligt niet voor jou, ik vertel voor jou als die waren.
En is dat tijden wanneer je honger gaat slapen?
Partijmaal slapen ons toe, ons heeft niks om te eten.
Niks niet?
Recht, ik vertel het voor jou, ik lig niet voor jou. Ja. Partijmaal slapen ons nog. Een beetje bosje soep om te koken, om te eten samen met die pap.
So je werkt, je eet, je slaapt. Je werkt, je eet, je slaapt.
Baas, dat is al wat je krijgt, verder niks.
Ja. Dus is het lekker leven of niet?
Soms is het gewoon, wat ga je nou maken? Wat ga je nou maken als je niet andere inkomsten hebt? Zeg je nou vandaag? Is nog vandaag je niet andere inkomsten en wat ga je maken? Je moet tevreden wezen met wat je krijgt.
Ja.
Je weet, de mensen raken gewoon om zwaar te krijgen. Ja. Wat ga je maken? Ik is meteen al ziek voor een maand. Dus ik neem mijn borst. Ik noem 20 maanden. Ik sukkel om geld te krijgen om dokter te gaan. Je kan niet krijgen.
So Tannie het nou saam met zwart mensen in Afrika land uitgeleef. Waarom zit Afrika so sukkel? Maar is nie net hierdie land nie. Dis Mozambique sukkel en daar in Rwanda sukkel en Zaire sukkel en Nigeria sukkel. Oral in Afrika so mense wat so sukkel.
Om vorentoe te gaan. Je weet alle verstand en wit mensen te verstand is niet anders. Elkeen, ik zei, die wit mensen is geboren met alle verstand. Die Heer heeft hulle anders gemaakt. Dat is wat die zwart is.
Ja, maar wat sê Tannie nou? Sê jy ons kan nie klaarkom nie? Dis nou die groot vraag want Tannie is mos die enigste Afrikaner wat so stoksteen alleen in Afrika geleef het. En nou wil ons weet, wat het jy hier geleer van die verhouding tussen ons en swart mense?
Ik weet amper niet wat om te zeggen. Je weet, elke mens heeft zijn eigen hart, je weet nou. Jij is niet zoals ik nie en ik is niet zoals jij. Het is daarom dat alle mensen niet kan anders wezen. Ja. So, je weet niet wat daar die mensen denken, hulle gedachten. Maar mijn gedachten, wat ik nou denk. Ons is toch allemaal vlees en bloed. Het is net die vel. Wat is die difference van die vel? Ja. Die Heer ontvangt ons allemaal. Daar is niemand wat in die hemel toegegaan heeft geweten dat die Heer niet die zwartes ontvangen. Wie was dat? Wie weet dat? Ons is allemaal mensen, ons is allemaal eeners, ons geboren eeners en alles. Jing, jing. Jing. Jing, Gary. Jing.
Indruk van hierdie foto's wat ons nou vir jou gewys het. Wat dink jy, wat is julle reaksie daarop?
Dat wat ons aanbetref, maak jy eenmal in jou lewe keuse. En dis vir my doodnatuurlik dat hierdie vrou het 'n keuse gemaak. Sy het haar vereenselwig met die swart mense. En sy het die resultate daarvan aanvaar. Sy het haar losgemaak van die Afrikaner gemeenskap. En sy het haar lot gaan inwerp by die swartes. En dat die swartes vir haar goed was en haar aanvaar het, dit vind ek nie vreemd nie. Waarmee ons probleme het, is mense wat van ons verwag dat ons moet ons lot inwerp by die swartes en ons moet as volk, soos daardie vrou, in Swart-Afrika verdwyn. Dit is wat vir ons onaanvaarbaar is.
Neem dit af, vat dit Engeland toe, vat dit oor die wêreld. Albie de Beer sal nie aanvaar dat daar vir ons hier voorgeskryf word. En ek sal nie, my swartes lewe hier by my, soos hulle sê in Engels, in clover. Ek sorg vir hulle. Ek gee om vir hulle. Ek gee vir hulle opleiding. ek gee om vir hulle families. Ons Suid-Afrikaners is die nasie wat die meeste omgee vir die ander kleuriges. Maar die wêreld sê, ons diskrimineer. Dit sal nie die waarheid wees nie, en ek sal dit op enige manier beveg. Ons gee om vir ons naaste. Ons glo in 'n God. En ons glo in 'n naaste liefde. Maar ons glo nie in onderdrukking nie, en ons glo ook nie om voorgeskryf te word nie.
Is jy 'n Nederland of is jy 'n Afrikaner?
Wie ek?
Ja.
Ek is Afrikaner bloed en ek sal Afrikaner bloed doodgaan.
Ja.
Die mens kan nie jou bloed verander waar jy gebore is nie, ja. Nee. Al bly jy met hulle. Jy kan nie jou verander en sê jy's daardie nasie. Hoe kan jy verander en sê jy's daardie nasie?
So Tannie nou lief geword vir hierdie plek hier tussen die vulkane. Met die vulkane.
Ja, ek het lief geword dus die plek. Want ek is hier gebore en ek het hier groot geword. Ek ken geen ander plek wat beter is.
Altyd onder die vulkane.
Altyd onder die vulkane, ja.
Elke oggend as jy opstaan, daar sit
Dan sien ek hulle, ja.
Het Tannie nou ooit uitgeklim?
Daai berg? Ja, toe ons in die skool gewees het. Was ek bo in die berg gewees.
Saam met skool.
Saam met skoolkamers.